welcome along to another episode of Sweet Tea and Coffee. We're recording later in the afternoon.
Yeah,
and
we're much more awake and alive than the last time.
We are ready. I got my vocab words ready. Got my thesaurus right here in front. We're excited and ready to go. We've got a great guest. This is a repeat guest.
This is the most repeated guest.
He's right now flashing the 3 because this will be his third time on the pod. This is Matt Murray, and we'll get to him in just a second, but we have a really exciting announcement, friends. We told you last episode that we were cruising right towards that number 10,000, and we have made it.
Yeah.
Blake, tell them what they've won.
Well, you know, we did all kinds of equations and math, and way beyond our knowledge level, we had to bring in scientists and things to decide who was the 10,000th listener, and I think we figured it out. Do you want to announce that person?
Well, I don't think we figured it out. I mean, I think we have an idea, and then we have a self-proclaimed 10,000
and that really is all
listener.
that matters, is self-proclaimed.
Right. So, Andrew Middlebrook is number 10,000.
That's it.
And
without a doubt.
You know, our R&D department went through this with a fine-tooth comb, and though we cannot dispute that Andrew is number 10,000, we also can't prove it.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, the challenge is yours. If you can show us how, and we need some good data, how you're number 10,000, we've got a special prize for you. And the one and only lead guitarist, lead electric guitar for the Blake Russell Band / Fredonia Hill Worship Band, Drew Middlebrook has a signed guitar pick.
The signed pick. He's got a sign really small on that pick.
He's just going to put his initials in print. And Andrew, that is yours. That is yours.
It's a very special prize.
It's a special prize, and it's just awesome that it would be you. But prove it to us, man. We would love to know how. But in all seriousness, we're amazed that many people have listened to this many episodes, and just wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, really cool. But we have things to talk about today.
We do.
So let's get going.
Enough of the banter. Let's hit that theme music. Okay, so I said we've got Matt Murray in the house, and this is your third time here, and I think you've brought something different to drink every time. Today, I don't know, Blake. What do we think about this? We've got some Lipton Diet, green tea. What's the rest of it say? Citrus.
Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of the green tea.
Okay,
but not the diet. I really like the
This
original.
5 calories.
Yeah. I need way more than that.
And according to the sticker, it is also 100% daily value of your antioxidants and vitamin C. So,
wow, it's good for you.
That's
Green
sure
tea's
better
good.
than Cooey did last week.
Yeah.
That's for sure. That big old blue can of peace tea. Matt, thanks for sitting down with us, man. You're sitting down with us today, and this, as people listen to this will be in the wake of them hearing, man, just some big changes ahead for you and your family. You have just recently been called to be the lead pastor of First Baptist Church in North Zulch, but the way in which that has all come about has been really, really incredible. And so today, that's what we wanted to talk to you about. We wanted to kind of go back to really, which has now been over 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, kind of the origin of some of this story. And some of you may have heard Matt talk through this on a Sunday morning, and if you haven't, would just really encourage you to go to our YouTube channel, our Fredonia Hill YouTube channel, and listen to the sermon that Matt preached. But just kind of, I guess, Matt, maybe the question is, the starting point here is, this all for you started to become clear during sabbatical, and we've talked a lot about how good and how healthy sabbatical is. So take us kind of to that point where, okay, here we go. You know, you made the analogy of like a runway, and the landing gear is down, but then you actually hit sabbatical, and actually it's this dramatic shut down and pause of a lot of things you've been doing. So just kind of take us into what the beginning of sabbatical was like for you.
Yeah, for me, well, I use that analogy of the airplane and the runway. And as of course we talked about it leading up to it a lot, but as we got closer and closer, the wheels came down, hit the runway, stopped the plane, turn everything off, get out of the plane. And for us, we began our sabbatical going to Florida and just going to spend some time with family down there. And,
no, don't lie to the people. Why did you go to Florida?
Well, the bucket list project was
that's right.
A trip to Florida State, the Florida State University, to see the 3-0 Florida State Seminoles.
That's what I'm talking about.
To go there to the campus and just do some cool things that I've always wanted to do and see some of that stuff. Go to a baseball game, all that kind of thing. Well, we spent about 10 days total in Florida, and we were down there, and it was the second Sunday that we were gone, and I had a dream in the middle of the night. Woke up, had a really, really strange dream, had some things incorporated in that dream. Woke up and was trying to go back to sleep, and I really had a vision from the Lord. And I know that sounds weird. I don't say that lightly, and I don't say that often at all. But I was trying to go back to sleep, and there was an unknown child that was there in my mind's eye, standing in front of me. The child said, "Is there an ocean that we do not know and a sea that we do not see?" And I immediately opened my eyes and I grabbed my phone, started writing all this stuff down. It's 3:23 in the morning. My wife's next to me, sound asleep. It's pitch black in the room. It's quiet. And start writing all this stuff down and wake up the next morning trying to decipher, what does this vision even mean? What does this look like? And as I was telling my family, they were all so confused. Like, yeah, that was a weird dream, and that was a weird vision that you had there, and the combination of the two, and what do you think this could mean? I said, I don't know what this means, but I do know that, number one, the child in the unknown dream was symbolic of the Lord because of the phrase "we." I just thought back to, let us make man in our image, and that whole triune nature of God. And so that word "we" was very key, but I also knew that it was something related to my identity. Just thinking through what was in wrapped up in the dream itself, and some of the accusation that was there, and some of the different things that kind of showed up in the midst of this really, really weird dream that woke me up in the first place. I knew it had something to do with my identity. And so just really began to try to wrestle through, what does that even look like? What does this mean?
Matt, I think this is an important point to jump in and ask a question here, because I think, first of all, you experienced this. You said it was 10 days into your sabbatical. Talk a little bit about the connection between, or you at least to the best of your understanding, why it is that this moment came after a decision that you'd made to stop and rest, to get away from the routine, the things that are often on our mind. This period of time away of sabbatical was a moment where it seems like kind of the airwaves kind of cleared a little bit. Do you think there's any connection there in that rest and the Lord speaking to you in the way that He did?
Absolutely. We talked about this a lot. Just those first several days, of course, being in Florida, we were at the beach, we were at the ocean, spent many days at the water, at the beach, whatever. But just that idea of rest and feeling like we had a true sense of disconnect. And that's why it was so important, going back to the airplane analogy, because, many times, and I was just thinking about even the cockpit analogy, but like all the buttons and all the switches and all the different things you're trying to check. But when you finally get out of the airplane and stopped that moment and disconnected from all things, ministry related, church related, and just got out of that and just turned my brain off, I guess, for the first time in 15 years of anything ministry related. You go on vacation, you go away for a week or whatever, but there's still things in the back of your mind. Yeah. Going into sabbatical was way different because I knew it was a 7-week intentional period of rest. So to be able to walk out of that and to just truly rest and not have anything on my mind as far as ministry or church related or project related, and just be totally at a peace of being wide open before the Lord in a sense of, being a restful state. I really feel like, and it was 3:23 in the morning. It was in the stillness of the quiet and of a dead sleep. When I feel like the Lord showed up and was like, I finally have got you in a place where I can speak to you,
Wow.
and all the distractions and all of the noise is turned off, and I've got your attention.
Now, the first thing, so you're, coming out of this, you said that you knew you were unsure about some things and you were sure about others. The thing that you were sure about was that you had a sense of this was God talking to me. And this is the Lord telling me some things that I need to stop and I need to listen to. You were sure of his presence in it. You were sure that it was the Lord, but you were unsure of kind of what it meant, other than, man, this is identity related. This is kind of, the Lord's kind of knocking on the door of maybe some things that I haven't necessarily talked about with him in a long time, or, whatever. So what was it like knowing, you're moving forward now, knowing that, okay, the Lord wants to talk to me about some deep heart stuff. Was that a hard decision to go, okay, I'm going to keep discerning this? Or was there a sense in which, like, no, I'm going to trust God here. I'm going to take these steps forward. I want to know what he's saying. I want to kind of press in. Did you feel any tension in that, or like an initial reaction to kind of want to go, no, God, I don't really want to talk about that right now. Thanks.
Yeah, I think for sure there was this sense of wanting to figure out, what does this mean? Like, what does this look like? I talked about the ocean, and I remember part of that, even in those first initial week, spending time at the beach, just swimming, playing with the kids, just relaxing with my wife, all that kind of stuff. Just watching the waves of the ocean and thinking about the magnitude of God's love and how those waves never stop coming in. It's just wave after wave, God's love being so continual. And so that's where I went back to that identity thing and thinking, okay, what is there that's been in my life? What's happened? What's those things? What does that look like? But also this sense of like, I need to figure this thing out, because going into sabbatical, it's kind of like, well, what am I thinking the Lord's going to do? I don't know, but I've always thought it's going to be like this great spotlight moment, the angels, like that. But it wasn't. It was like in the quiet stillness of the night. So I'm going, okay, Lord, please reveal this to me. What does this mean? I know this is you. You're trying to communicate. Let me be aware. Let me be listening to your voice and trying to decipher, what does this look like, and what are you trying to speak to us here in this moment, And so, yeah, wanting to press in pretty hard and figure that out, and just, okay, God, what are you trying to speak about here in this situation? And as as time continued going on, it was about a week later, I was going to my time of solitude. And that's when really God began to kind of clear some of that up and bring some of that stuff back.
Yeah. Now, this is a point that I think is really important for people to hear. If they've heard your story, they've heard you talk about kind of some decisions that you'd made. One of those decisions being, man, first of all, I'm going into a time of solitude. So just setting this up, Matt was going to go spend some time. He'd rented a van down by the river, and just kidding. He rented this camper. And Matt has always, grew up around the ocean, and so the ocean has always been really meaningful to him, in many of the same ways that the deer stand is meaningful to many of our listeners. But that's always been a place where Matt's talked about connecting with the Lord. It's been a meaningful place to him. So he was going to go and spend just some time by himself. But on your way, you made a decision. You were like, okay, I'm going to go. And part of going is I want to continue to discern what God is doing, but I'm only going to fill my ears with one thing. Talk about that decision to focus on worship.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was going to be a 2-hour drive from where I was in Houston down to the beach, and I just decided, Lord, there's a lot of great music choices. I've got my Apple Music, and there's everything I could ever want to listen to. But I just decided, Lord, I'm going to continue this process to try to work out what you're trying to say to me. Like, what is it? And I want to just focus myself. So as I go away on these next 3 days by myself, alone, I'm only going to play the worship playlist. I only want to listen to worship music. Now, this wasn't a playlist that I even curated myself. It was just one of the general ones that Apple put out, but I also decided, you know what, Lord, I'm also not going to just go search my favorite songs either. I'm just going to hit play, and it's on a shuffle, and I'm just, whatever comes about, I'm just going to listen to, and I'm going to just press into and just see, God, can you speak to me in this way?
Yeah.
Like, what are you, and ironically, as I started that drive, that first 20, 30 minutes on the road, the first several songs, the theme that kept coming up was, every single song was fear. Every single song talked about fear, an element of fear. And I just began to really clearly feel like God was trying to speak to me about, what are you afraid of? Like, what is the fear that you've held on to that you've been holding on to? Once again, going back to identity, where's this connection point? What is the thing that's kind of kept you fearful and gripped with that idea of fear? And I just began weeping. I just began kind of uncontrollably weeping as I'm driving down to the beach and just thinking, okay, God, I'm listening. Like, I know that you're talking to me about the area of fear, and I don't want to continue to live my life in fear. And very clearly, just felt like the Lord, brought up a situation in my past that happened. It was about 10 years ago, a situation in which I was deeply hurt. There were some things that were said to me and that called out my, kind of questioned my character and my integrity as a pastor, as a leader. And those things in that time, 10 years ago, they shook me to the core, and they crushed me. They broke me, me and my wife both. We were both so deeply hurt by those things that were said to us that we kind of drew back into a shell because of fear.
Now, I was going to say, I think one of the things that's important to know about this story is this was at a moment when the criticism came that you're referring to. This was in a moment where you were kind of, for the first time, really stepping out and exploring a call to pastoral ministry. You'd been a youth pastor, and you were kind of sensing, okay, God, is this what you've called me to do? Is this? And so for you, so the fear, because I think that's important in understanding the fear part. This was for you a moment of vulnerability. Mm-hmm. The attack came in a moment of vulnerability. Is that where, do you think that's that combination of criticism and vulnerability that kind of sparked that deep fear? Obviously it was hurtful.
Yeah.
And hurt and pain are one thing, but somewhere fear kind of gets embedded in your heart. Where did that really come from, you think?
Yeah, well, it was, like I said, in that moment of vulnerability, speaking out loud, the calling I felt God had placed on my life, when I spoke that out loud in the context of other people for the first time, and being immediately met with a moment of opposition and a moment of, well, who do you think you are? Like, just that whole mindset behind it. Like, there's no way that you could do this, that this is not of the Lord, and that fear, that mindset, that doubt begins to creep in and going, okay, well, really, was that the Lord speaking to me, or was that just me putting my own 2 cents in there, or was it something that maybe they're right, maybe this isn't for me, but then again, I use this analogy too. It's kind of like there was a flame that was there, and the flame was constantly, fading in the background over the last 10 years. But there was moments of the flickering of the light going, okay, maybe it's there. But then again, it's like, but remember the last time you brought this out. Remember the last time you spoke this. There's no way. And it just created so much self-doubt and just being so unsure of myself in that, and who God's called me to be, and because of the things that were said and spoken over me, that I had eventually began to maybe not believe them full-heartedly, but they were something I constantly leaned on as a crutch, and so the Lord just called that out in that moment of driving to the beach, and there's the fear, and there it is, and Well, yeah. So okay, so here you are now driving to the beach. And you've made the decision, God, I'm going to intentionally listen. I think that's a really important point to stop and just got to say, now hold on here. This really matters. And the thing I think about when I think about this is I think about my kids. And I'm a parent of young kids, and there are moments where you have important things to say to them, but you need their attention in order to say it. Because if they're off playing or whatever, or eating, or the point is, if they're distracted, then you could say the words,
right?
But those words are not going to land in a place that they're going to be really received. And so what you're doing is what you're trying to do is you're getting their attention in a way that they become an active listener. They're focused, and you wait for their focus before you speak. And I think that's why I wanted to stop here, because I think it's really important. I think a lot of times we accuse God of not speaking. We go, God, you're not talking to me. You're not speaking to me. You're not leading me. I need you here. But at the same time, and it's not that God is withholding from us. But I think God waits a lot of times for our attention.
Yeah.
Because the things that God wants to say to us really matter. And so I think it's important to say, or to stop here and highlight in your story that, this drive for you were saying, okay, God, I know 10 days ago or a week ago, I had this vision. I know you're trying to talk to me. And I'm going to make a set of decisions that were as simple as like what I'm going to listen to, and because I want to hear you. And you're saying that as you drove and as you listened to those songs and the fear started to come up, that you knew immediately, obviously, you reacted in a strong way. You knew immediately, okay, God's talking to me about some fear in my life, and it brought back these memories. You knew that God was dealing with you in a continuation from that dream and vision.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very clear. It became very clear. And I just started trying to process that. Okay, Lord, so, we've got the fear. We've kind of found the root of this whole thing. Well, what do I need to do with this? How do I need to process this? And it brought me back to that whole situation 10 years ago. And in that moment when all of that kind of was happening to me, I had journaled that stuff, and had wrote that stuff. And I was writing. It was a way in which at that time I could kind of vent and just process what was the hurt that happened.
Yeah.
And I had kept that journal for so many years. I mean, sitting in my desk drawer, the journal was completely full. Almost everything in there was wonderful, great things and moments with the Lord. And then there was that those 2 pages that were just tucked away, from that situation. And the Lord said, you know what, you're going to the ocean right now. And I had already had the whole vision about this, is there an ocean we don't know and a sea we do not see? I started thinking again about that, God's love, and that I had tried to, with this situation specifically over the last 10 years, I guess in a way of trying to communicate that call, kind of trying to tell people this is what happened to me. Here's the experience I walked through, almost as if they could shoulder it for me, going, hey, here's my hurt, here's my pain, here's my story. Can you relate? Can you see this? Can you feel this? And I just very clearly in that moment, back to the Jeep now driving, the Lord saying, you've been trying over the last 10 years, Matt, to get people to shoulder this with you, but the only one who you can truly give it to is me. You have to surrender this. You have to give it to me. And so the sea part of that being so symbolic, I was thinking about the depths of the ocean and all the significance of the waters of the ocean and how God knows every part of that. And God was like, it's like he spoke to me saying, I know your pain. I know the situation you walk through, and I know the fear that it's caused you, but will you give it to me? Will you relinquish control? And it was almost as if he said, you need to, and I had the journal with me. I took the journal home with me at the beginning of sabbatical because, like I said, so many wonderful things. I have journaled and wrote about, salvation stories of people and people I've baptized and just moments with the Lord, all these wonderful things, thinking I might go back and recall some of those things or whatever. But God is like, you've got the journal with you. You've got that. You need to take that stuff out. You need to burn
And isn't that an interesting picture, though, of exactly what we do with hurt and pain and fear and brokenness and those things? That's an unbelievable picture. We carry it around with us.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly what we do. We take it with us everywhere we go. And obviously in this sense, you weren't necessarily trying to do that. That wasn't what your aim was, but the picture of that there it was, that memory right there following you around, and God's going, no, I need that from you.
Well, and also I think too, you can have a lifetime of great things, of seasons of ministry, moments of ministry, things that have happened so wonderful. You can take it even down to a daily thing where there's so many great moments in a day, and we focus on the one negative thing, the one thing that hurt the most. And that's the thing that we kind of hold on to. And so I felt that in that moment going, man, yeah, this is where I'm at. This is what I've got. And the Lord said, you need to once and for all, rip that out of your journal. Because I contemplated over the years, tearing those pages out and getting rid of them, but then thinking, well, it's part of my story. Yeah. It's gotten me to where I am. It's on my journey, and I can't take that part away. The Lord said, you need to take it away.
Yeah, because you were holding on to it for different reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, yeah.
Absolutely. You don't need to have 2 pages in your journal. That's still part of your story, but you don't need that negativity sitting there as something that you just know is available all the time. You need to just give it to me. And so I called my dad. Once again, I'm driving, I'm weeping, I'm talking to the Lord, I'm listening to worship music. All this stuff is happening simultaneously. And I'm just like, I've got to talk to somebody. So I called my dad, and I'm like, hey, Dad, here's what's going on. Here's what I feel like the Lord is saying. And I kind of explained all of it. And he goes, I think you know what you need to do. And so I said, I think you're right. I mean, I just needed to hear somebody else confer that with me. Like, this is not me. I'm not just crazy. It wasn't, just all these weird thoughts. But so the next day, I made the decision. I got to the beach, and I, that night had a great night. The next day I woke up and I was like, first thing in the morning, I'm going to go down to the water. I'm going to tear these pages out. I'm going to put them in a bucket and burn them and cast the ashes into the ocean and symbolically let God's love wash over me and let him take this fear, take this pain and scatter it as far as the east is from the west, and allow him for me to walk away from that, and I was taking pictures of everything. I'm that guy. I have so many random pictures of things, but while I was at the beach, I was just trying to document things, and so I decided to actually document this moment and just set my camera up and videoed it, and I just went down to the ocean. I dumped it in the water, and I turned around, and I just said, I'm done living in fear. I want to move forward in faith. And it was as simple as that. And from that moment, it's just the symbolic throwing that into the ocean, walking back to my chair and sitting down. I just felt God's love, and I felt that weight off my shoulder for the first time in 10 years,
Wow. Yeah. So this will be a good interlude to tell a funny story about me. Maybe people have heard. Matt has this like really beautiful ceremony of burning this thing, and it's like he's got it on camera and whatever. I remember when I was a teenager, I got convicted about the music I was listening to. I think maybe I told this story on the podcast. But
you might have, but it's a good story.
Anyway, I was listening to some music I shouldn't have been listening to, whatever, and I got really convicted about it. And I was like, I'm gonna burn these CDs, right? So I piled all these CDs in my.
And when you say burn these CDs, not like you're going to go make a bunch of copies of them. You're actually going to physically burn these CDs.
For those of you,
some of you may not know what we're talking about, burning CDs.
So anyway, I get them in the sink, man, and I light these jokers on fire. Well, see, they don't burn, they don't burn. So I'm like, trying to, and all that's happening is this stuff's like melting, and it's super. There's nothing beautiful about it. I end up putting a like really bad burn mark on the sink. Got in trouble for it. It's like, I don't know. So Matt has this like really. Anyway,
now you got a bunch of totally melted jealous. Run DMC CDs. Yeah,
man. Well, it wasn't Run DMC, but anyway, yeah. So I'm totally jealous. Anyway, but I love the idea that that God brought you to a place that there's ceremony behind it, and that there's a physical marker to a spiritual reality. That's something that you literally with your hands, you threw those things into the ocean. Why do you think that was an important part of it? Why do you think it was an important part for you to actually physically tear those sheets out and burn them and throw them in? Why was that important to you?
I mean, I just think it's the realization of letting go, of just giving it. Stop trying to control this. Stop trying to hold on to it. Stop trying to shoulder this and carry this your own. You just got to give it to me, and just get rid of it. And that's so that's why I wanted to do that. That's why I felt like that was what I needed to do. And once again, the whole sea part of that was very key in that moment. But I just think it was time to stop holding on to the fear and stop holding on to the past and look forward and see, God, what might you want to do with this?
Yeah, and I think that's good. That's a great transition, because I think that's the question is naturally, okay, and people hear, Matt's going to go and pastor in North Zulch and why we need to tell this story, because there's just so much here. But it's not like you went from that moment to, oh my goodness, I'm going to start sending out resumes. Here we go. But what happened in you, and I've heard you tell this story now so many times, and but the thing that really happened in your heart seems like you went from a place of fear to, and fear being like, I'm not going to be vulnerable like that again, even though there's this flicker, this flame that God may be wanting to call and use me in pastoral ministry. I'm going to hang on to that because I'm afraid. And this moment seems like it moved you to a place of openness. That's the best way I know how to describe it. Openness, not, okay, now I'm going to go do. It wasn't action. I'm not going to go do X, Y, and Z. It was, now I'm going to give God my yes. I'm going to be open to how God wants to use me. Is that how you would describe it? What would you say about the place where you were after that?
Yeah, I mean, moment? That's exactly the place. It's the moment of surrender. It's the moment of, okay, God. I mean, I go all the way back. I'm just thinking about it right now in this moment. I go back to when I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
Telling God for the first time, I'm surrendering my life to ministry, having no clue what that looks like.
Yeah.
But saying, whatever you ask, God, whatever you want, I'll do. I'll go, I'll do, I'll be, you know. And 17 years old, didn't really know what that looked like. But now, fast forward, here I am, you know, it's like, okay, God, yes. Yes, I'm going to tell you yes. I'm going to put that yes on the table. There's actually one of the songs that was on that worship playlist that played multiple times, because that's the only music I listen to for 3 days. You know, I'm out there fishing, watching the water, all that stuff, and just that music is playing over and over. But the song that was really repetitive was a song that's called "We Say Yes," and those lyrics were so powerful, and that's exactly what I was saying. Lord, yes, we say yes. Like, we want to say yes to whatever it is you have. So just that idea of surrender. Not trying to figure it out,
right?
Not trying to, okay, well, that must mean this, or this, but just to say, yes, Lord, I'm yours. You know, whatever you want. Like, if that's the thing I need to do, then I'm just going to say yes. I don't know what this looks like. I don't have it figured out. I don't have all the plans, but I know you do. I know that, once again, you see the depths of the ocean. You know the depths of my heart. You know the depths of my life, and I'm just going to tell you yes.
Yeah.
And so, kind of walked away from that encounter with that very thing, you know, just telling the Lord, I'm willing to say yes. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm willing to say yes. And it's funny because the next church, so that was, I think my solitude ended on a Friday, and that Sunday was the first Sunday that we were actually in church. I hate to admit that on the podcast, but I didn't go to church for like the first 2 weeks of my sabbatical, 3 weeks of my sabbatical. So we go to church for the first time. We're at Megan's home church in Houston. And the pastor gets up to start a brand new series on the book of Jonah called Runaway.
Oh.
And he starts it out by saying, how many of you are here today? And, you know, you're running from the Lord. You're running from the call. You're running from salvation. And I looked across the aisle at Megan, and we made eyes at each other going, are you serious? Like, because this is exactly what we had felt like we had done through that, once again, that idea of fear, just like Jonah, you know, just like, I'm afraid of this, Lord, I'm afraid. So,
but that didn't just happen once.
No, it happened, every time we went to church. We went to 5 different churches over the course of the next 5 weeks. And
like, just in case you weren't paying
Sunday,
attention.
That's right.
Once again, he's going, look at me, listen. Because I still was thinking, okay, Lord, I'll say yes, but this is still, you know, a couple of years down the road. Like, things are great at Fredonia Hill. We've got so much work to get back to. And
there's no rush.
Yeah, like, you've been waiting. So he's like, look at me, you know, and every single church that we went to, there was an aspect of, are you listening?
Yeah.
Are you still surrendering? Are you going to surrender? Are you going to really let this go? And the last Sunday, we went to a church, and the last thing that was said was, you don't need to hear another sermon. You need to just start using the gifts God's given you. And it was like, okay, close the book. That's it. We're done. Like, you know. And so from there, even coming back into the office that next week, or that first week back, I just still was feeling like, okay, maybe this is down the road, but I just couldn't contain it. I felt like I was just bursting at the seams. And that's when I came that next week and talked to you about it all, Kendall. So.
Well, I love that you shared that struggle, because I think sometimes in our minds, we go, oh, he had the moment at the beach and he gave it all to the Lord, and then boom, off into the rainbow, sunset, roses, you know, whatever. But you're not saying that. You're even saying, even after that moment of yes, which that was great, powerful moment that absolutely had to happen, but it wasn't a finished product. It was a beginning. You had to surrender it, but then you immediately step into the battle of daily obedience, where, you know, of course you start to rationalize that and start to go try to figure it out. And that daily battle of obedience is so important. It's not just that we say yes one time and then we never have to wrestle with it again. You're talking about wrestling with it essentially immediately after this big moment, and really kind of continuing to surrender even after that initial moment. So it's a process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you come in and then we have a conversation, and we can we say what you want about that, but I think what's been cool is that it's been very redemptive in nature. You've now started to say yes publicly again. and just kind of putting your yes on the table, not just between you and your wife, your family, but also within the context of other believers. And that was a vulnerable, scary place before, and the Lord has redeemed that. But then all of a sudden, that yes and the timing of that yes, things start to move pretty quick. So tell us a little bit about how new direction starts to open up.
Yeah, well, it was such a great moment and a great conversation that you and I had, and you were very affirmative in that. There's not a rush. You're safe here. There's not going to be any pressure here. You don't got to take the first thing that comes along. All those just very supportive elements, and I just can't thank you enough. I want to publicly do that now, but it was we sent out, just a few resumes, 4 resumes, and not really knowing what's going to happen there. And it was very quickly thereafter, we heard back from the church in North Zulch. And I sent my resume on the last day they were even accepting resumes. So once again, you kind of write it off thinking, it's probably a lost cause, but either way, I'll send it. And that next week, got an email back, hey, we're interested in reaching out and having a conversation, and hit the ground running from there. Things began to ramp up very quickly, and one thing led to another. And what we said going into this, Megan and I, and just talking about it as a family, is we feel like we're saying yes to the Lord. And I think so many times when we think about saying yes, it's like, yes, God, but this. Mm-hmm. Yes, God, but here's what we want. Here's the parameters. Here's the things that we need. And we just said yes. And there were so many things along the way. We just said, well, we're going to say yes, and we're going to keep walking through open doors until they are no longer open. And so North Zulch contacts us, and we start talking to them, and the doors kept flinging wide open every step of the way. There were so many but God moments along the way where we knew this was God's direction and God's leading. Things that didn't make sense or weren't even clear at the very beginning of the conversation, that God continued to reveal, this is what I have for you. This is where I'm asking you to go. This is what I want you to do. And there's so many mountains that we can just testify about that have moved along the way that says, as God saying, this is what I'm going to do so that you can be here. And I'm going to show you this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to open this door. And so it's just been so neat to sit back on this side going, God's continuing to write this story, and who knows how it's going to turn out, what it's going to look like. But we're just so thrilled that He's called us to be a part of that journey, and that He has said yes to us, like given us that green light to move forward in that way of ministry. So we're excited. We're still nervous, and there's still some fear there, of course, but know absolutely that God is in this, that He's leading this, that He's put us to this point. And so we're just excited to get there and start ministering to the people and start doing His work there in North Zulch.
Well, I want to kind of close with a little bit of just some logistics, but so Matt's last Sunday here is going to be on October the 9th, and we're going to celebrate, and celebrate as Baptists do, with food. Yeah, that's what we do.
Bringing
the potluck to you. So excited about that. But Matt, so many people that are listening to this either are very obviously connected in our church, part of our church, or love our church and have vested interest in Nacogdoches and are people that are praying people. And I just want to challenge you, friends. Listen, if you're we're about to wind this podcast down, and I don't know what you're going to next, but just would ask you to stop and take 3 or 4 minutes before whatever is next for you, and to pray and intercede specifically for Matt and Megan, obviously, as they make this transition. They're heading into a time of transition, moving their family and everything, but also for the advancement of God's kingdom in North Zulch, and to pray for those people. So Matt, tell us, just as we do come to a close, tell us a little bit about the community, and then as people that would intercede for you and for the church, what would you ask?
Yeah, it's a small rural community out between Madisonville and Bryan College Station, and we're just excited with anticipation to get there and to start the area of just pastoral care specifically. It seems like it's been one thing that they've been needing and lacking, and so we're excited about jumping in there. And so we just, if we could ask, I guess, for one thing, we'd ask for favor there, and that the Lord would and that's the hard part of thinking about transition. I mean, we've been here 8 years, and there's so many relationships, and you've got so much context, but walking into a new situation, just asking for favor in relationships and that there would not be barriers there, that it would be a very open, system there of trust and quick relationship building. We've already seen some of that, but just asking God to continue that work. And then just also for my family, our 3 young kids, time of transition, a new school, new things, all that, new home. So just asking for God's favor and blessing there, is that transition would be smooth.
Well, seriously, friends, if you could just stop for a few minutes and pray for Matt, pray for Megan and their entire family, and pray for North Zulch, and again for God's kingdom to advance there. We just couldn't be more excited for you, man. We're pumped for you and excited that Fredonia Hill has been and will continue to be a huge part of this story. And so many of us love you guys so deeply, but are just blown away by who God is. And I just don't want, we said that we're going to say this many times throughout this story, but I just don't want this to go unheard, that, listen, this is not a story that is just about somebody being called to ministry. Certainly that is in play and working in Matt's life. This is a story about how so many times we let either our failures or the things that others have said about us hold us captive. But God never stops pursuing us. God doesn't give up on who he's called us to be and how he wants to use us. And God is coming and relentless in his pursuit and in his love. And the question is just, man, will we listen to him? Will we allow him to speak identity over us, to show us who we are in him and to call us? And then will we trust him with our deepest wounds and our hurts? Will we surrender those to him? And who knows where he is calling you? There is no reason why the past should be a barrier to our obedience now. But dealing with that involves an encounter with God and with his love. There is no ocean that we don't know or a sea that we do not see. I love those words. So Matt, thank you so much, man, for 8 years, and for sitting down and chatting with us. And there's so much more in this story to come. We'd love to hear how this has impacted you. As always, please reach out to us on any of our communication channels and share. And then we will be with you next time.
Yeah, make sure if you see Andrew Middlebrook, to congratulate him. He'd appreciate all your attention and praise. So make sure you let him know how appreciative you are of his listening.
We'll sign off now. Have a great rest of your day. Adios.